Hi everybody. A lot of people always ask me about my roses. I wanted to show you real quickly one of my finished products. This is a rose, was light pink. If you look at some of the coloring deep inside and around the edges, you'll see like there's different shades, and it's because I've dusted it with luster dust, which makes it more natural looking, because as you know, a rose has many colors on it. So putting that aside, there's really two methods. My favorite method is not using any tool, but most people are uncomfortable with that. So I'm going to use tools and show you how I do it. As I said, I condition fondant, and I use all my old fondant. If you look at this fondant, it's white, it's hard, you can't even, it's not even pliable. And so what I do is I pop it in the microwave first, a little bit, and then a few seconds. You always want to test it, because what ends up happening is if it gets too hot, it melts down and you won't even be able to work with it. It will have some hot spots. So what you want to do is, this was dry, so you really will have to work this one out. First, what I do is I kind of start to get it going. Then I take some shortening on my hands just so it's not sticky, because then after a while, this has a lot of tylose, so that's what made it so hard, even though I added the shortening, and it's sitting and it's old, but I added water right now. And the reason I added the water is part of the reconditioning process. So when it is really nice and pliable, you'll know it feels like new fondant with a lot of tylose in it, or cornstarch to make it thick. So after we have that conditioned again, then we can set this aside. And people always say, oh, wrap it up so it doesn't get dry. I don't wrap mine up because I use it fast, and when I'm working, that is. After I'm done working, then I do. Now, I rolled out a little piece, made it somewhat of a cone. This is the base of your rose right here. And then I took a larger piece of fondant and I rolled it out as thin as I could. And what I do is I shape it a little bit more to a teardrop. I don't use all those cutters, although if I need a cutter, I just use round cutters, like round cookie cutters. Okay, and then of course we want to ruffle it a little bit, and I just go back and forth. It's not a lot of ruffle. Now this one is extremely large. This would be more on the outer edge. So if you overdo it, oh, I don't know where that pearl came from. If you overdo it, you can cut it down. And then you add a little bit of liquid. And yes, it's going to be too big, but I don't like my center to show. I like it to look even more natural. So, as you can see right there, squish everything down in the bottom. There's a good chance that you're going to have a lot of excess on the bottom, and that's okay, because you can cut all that off. And pretty much that's all you're doing, is just to add petals. I keep on adding the excess of any of the petals. Now, I was always taught that it takes 5 petals to make a good rose. I like my roses very big, as you can see, and that one has a pretty close to a dozen or more. And like I said, I just roll it out very thin. Cut off the excess depending on the size of the petal that you need. Just needs to be, doesn't even need to be a perfect teardrop shape. when you have, even not to have any more excess, I'll cut off a little bit like so of the bottom. Now we went this way, now we're going to go back and on the opposite end. You want to make sure this one, we want to make sure this one stays closed. So at this point, as you increase in the amount of petals, you also are going to open them up. We want a nice open rose. So, when I make petals, when I make roses, I don't make just one at a time. I make a lot. So what I do is I make, sorry for that, the camera got a little bit close to me. So what I do is I make 10 or 20, depending on how many roses that I have to make, of any one part of the rose, whatever that is. And this one is a little heart shape, and that's okay. Remember, again, cutting off the bottom. Okay, now we're going to start to really work on our shape. And yes, this seems like a little large, but you'll see it, in the end it's not. So what I've done is I've attached it down at the bottom, the base. Now we're going to start to curl it back and come and pinch in the middle, and pinch in the middle down here in the base as well. And you set it up, and you can play with the petals how you like them at this point. Remembering that I'm going to only add one more. I like also to have graduation of color, like that ombre look. So I am going to add one more. So at this point it is 3 petals, and I'm going to add one more, which is going to make it 4. And you can start to see when you start to see, I'll do it again. When you start to see that the fondant rises up toward the end, then you know that how thin it is. See? When it starts to kind of like bubble. Oh, you need to cut this to shape. Not a perfect shape, is it? There we go. Much better. And then we're going to ruffle up the edge so you have that kind of curly look. You're going to add some liquid, though I need to probably cut off and add some liquid in here. If you ever take a petal on a rose, it looks like this. It's shaped like this. So don't feel bad if you shape a petal that way. You're actually doing it like nature. And see, now I'm beginning to go back. If you use fondant that is older, it has more stability to hold the shape. Otherwise, when fondant is very fresh and very moist, what ends up happening is that it will droop, as this one is starting to droop. When that happens to me, I lean it up against something and allow it to rest. But remember that I'm usually making a lot more roses at one time. I'm going to change colors now because, like I said, I want the graduation of color in the petals, because that makes it even look more natural. So, getting this nice and large, which, like I said, as time goes on, your petals need to be a little larger. And then I like that folded look. I forgot to ruffle this edge here. And you can even come down. You don't want to get your ball tool wet. But then we're going to taper it back. So I'm going to start pinching the petals on the outside. And then to make them pop open, the roses, I squeeze at the base. And as you can see, the rose starts to open up. And I do just want to, we may have some problems with it holding up, only because we're not giving it enough time to dry. But even if you just make 3 roses at a time, you can make all your petals at one time. You do not have to make the rose individually or attach the petals right as you make them, and you do not have to cover them with plastic either. They will be just fine. So here we go. Here we go. Believe me, I love tools, but a person can buy too many tools. Now, there is also a tool to put veins and add depth into each petal. You can buy the veiners, or you can make your own veiner. When I need to have a veiner, all I use is a corn husk. Shh, don't tell anybody I told you. Okay, so as you can see, it's floppy, it's soft. So what I'm going to do is I am going to rest it on something. Maybe if I pull it back down a little bit, there we go. Not as, you can pull it from the outside as well, and you can see. Now I'm probably just going to add one more for the sake of this tutorial, one more petal underneath. But it really doesn't need to. But the only reason I am is because of the coloration right here. So we'll move this, give me a little bit more cornstarch here, and begin to roll it out. And you can even go as light as almost white. If you like your petals a little thicker, there's nothing. If you see the difference between this one and the one on the rose, it is very, I like mine paper thin. I just feel like they have more lifelike look to them. So, but everybody likes things different. You know that saying, there's no right answer, no wrong answer. So it's a matter of what you like. I also like big beefy roses, cabbage like roses. What is the other word that they use for them is garden roses, peony roses. A rose is a rose. By any other name, a rose is a rose. And not perfect because of the drying time, but you can see, you can pull back your petals, pull them back. If you allow things to dry and be patient, you will have big, beautiful roses, such as this one that I made. So, can you add leaves to this? Absolutely. Can you add the Galax to this? Absolutely. You can add whatever it is that you like. When they dry up a bit, that's when I dust my roses. So, I hope that this helped you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And we'll make other tutorials on other flowers. Thank you.